Welcome back for another video. I'm Eharbad, a free-to-play endgame player in Raid Shadow Legends. In today's video, we're going to look at the fusion guide for Gnishak Vermin Lord. A little bit frustrating, I actually recorded the video, but the audio was so bad that I'm having to re-record it. So will it be as organic and natural as the first one? Probably not, but we're just going to have to persevere anyway. So the first thing to mention, this is a traditional fusion, which means we're going to have to collect 16 rares, rank them up to 4-star 40, fuse them into 4 epics, rank those up to 5-star 50, and fully ascend all the champions along the way to finally fuse into the legendary Gnishak Vermin Lord. I will just quickly touch on that I don't think any of these epics are particularly strong. I'm not that fussed about having a copy of any of them, and I think that will factor into our decision making in terms of how we will approach the fusion. I just want to touch on the fusion event calendar that player themselves have put out. I do think these are improving with each iteration. I would prefer to see these ordered in a way that you can more easily see order in which the events drop. They do seem to jump up and down along the way, which, although it's kind of graphically balanced, shall we say, it's actually not very informative. Anyways, let's jump over to the calendar that I have put together, and that's typically where I do most of discussions from. Right then, the first thing to mention is that we only have one summoning event, and I think that's pretty much unheard of. I think it's the first time we've ever had a legendary fusion or fragment champion where there's only been one summoning event in the calendar. We have previously had the situation where we've only needed to participate in one summoning event, although even that recently has not been the case, and we've been mandatory forced to summon in both events. On the flip side, though, we do have 3 dungeon divers throughout this fusion, which I think could be problematic. Dungeon Diver 1 is currently set at 2,850 points for a 3-day event, which is approximately 4,000 energy in stage 24 dungeons. That is a lot for a 3-day event, so be aware. I do think there will be persistent energy crunches throughout this fusion. Furthermore, the timing of Dungeon Diver events is not great. Dungeon Divers 2 and 3 do not line up with the respective dungeon tournaments exactly, and Dungeon Diver points per energy is worse outside of dungeons, so it's worse in campaign. That's another thing to be considering. I expect the main champion training event that falls pretty much in the middle of the fusion to be a big one. I do expect to see a legendary tome. We might also see something like Chaos Ore or some decent soul shards or essences. I think the total points requirement will be around 14 to 15,000. I do think the second rare will probably be around the 10,000 points mark, and I would recommend doing the entire event if it is as we envisage. As there's no champion chase during the fusion itself, there is no particular benefit towards the fusion in terms of when we time fusing the epics. However, we will likely have a champion chase during what would normally be 2x voids, and we have a CVC just beforehand, during which we could get some benefit from the epic fusion. I will likely fuse 1 or 2 epics during the CVC for extra points, and also to grind out as much of the champion training points as possible towards ultimately fusing the legendary. Furthermore, I will target doing the entire Fire Night tournament on the Tuesday once CVC has begun, and I will likely end up using gems to do so, and that will give me the best overlap on CVC points and the highest efficiency for the use of my gems. Beyond that, we have Artifact Enhancement, which is really just silver, and we have Classic Arena, which generally, for most players, will just take care of itself. As long as you're using your keys, you'll get those done without any real problem. Now, we do have the ability to go for a epic in the Summon Rush, and as I mentioned, I'm not particularly fussed on having a copy of the epic, so I do think if we decide to go for the epic, we could skip up to 4 events thereafter. And I would expect that at least 2 of those events that I would be skipping if I do that would be the Dungeon Divers 2 and Dungeon Divers 3, as I do think those are going to be very intensive. It really just depends how they put the points in this summon rush. I definitely don't want to be using too many shards during this summon rush if I can avoid it, because although I've cited this is likely to be 2x void, given it is the Christmas weekend, it's quite possible or even quite probable that Plarium will throw out a series of summoning events. We might even see 2x Void, Ancient, and 2x Sacred. We could even see some guaranteed over that Christmas period. So I do think that there is a strong possibility there will be some additional special events and tournaments during this time. We could even see like a Hero's Path or something alongside that. So I definitely wouldn't try and blow all your shards in the summon rush if you want to be well positioned for what they could throw us during the Christmas period. So like I said, we'll have to just see what the summon rush points look like and make a decision once that has dropped. In terms of the day by day, obviously we're starting with Ice Golem, and then once the champion training drops, we do have a bit of overlap where we're going to have to balance out champion training with Fire Knight and with Spider, all the while doing clan v clan. And I think it's fairly logical the order in which the events we're going to participate. Like I mentioned, I think the main issue would be Dungeon Divers, so we'll probably have to do a lot more dungeon farming than we would otherwise want to do. For instance, I would likely be expecting to stop the Ice Golem at either 2750 points or even lower if I didn't need or want the final reward. But given that we need to put about 4,000 energy during this period into dungeons, I expect I will finish Ice Golem, then maybe I'll just throw the rest into Spider for Dungeon Divers and get that silver going. So we'll just kind of have to manage that and see what makes sense for us. I don't really necessarily want to farm 4,000 energy in Ice Golem itself. And then, as I mentioned with the Fire Knight, I'll do that during Clan v Clan. And then, unfortunately, Spider will start once CBC is finished, so we're not going to have any opportunity to double dip there. But given that we do have the beginning of the Dungeon Divers on day 2 of Clan v Clan, it will probably be worth throwing additional energy into Spider during the Wednesday to preempt the points we'll need in Dungeon Diver, even though Spider hasn't actually begun. All this additional farming of Spider will also put us in good positions with respect to the silver to be able to do all the artifact enhancement events. And then finally, once we have Dragon, there is an overlap with champion training over a couple of those days, so which means we'll be able to do that solo farm Dragon 25 with food, and that will hopefully help us complete the fusion. One more watch out that I definitely want to cite is that the fusion is scheduled to finish on New Year's Eve on Saturday the 31st, which means we have very little time between the end of the tournaments and events and within which we have to actually fuse the legendary. There is not much time or margin for error there. So you have to make sure that you are doing all the events and that you keep on top of ranking up the rares, fusing the epics and ranking up the epics, because we're going to have very little time and almost no opportunity for there to be an additional champion training tournament or event or any kind of champion chase or anything for us to get additional rewards for. Fingers crossed they'll drop a champion chase on that Friday the 30th to Saturday, 31st, but I wouldn't expect it. I think the champion chase will occur during the Christmas weekend and whatever series of summoning events they have there. Right then, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and good luck in the fusion if you are going for Gnishak. Catch you in the next video. Bye for now.